My name is Anna Dawson. I'm 29. And last week, my own brother looked me in the eye and said, "It's only for family," when he explained why I wasn't invited to my parents' anniversary party. For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. We were on the phone, and I actually pulled it away from my ear and stared at the screen like it could explain how I'd just been erased from my own family. "Only for family?" I repeated, my voice going flat. "Yeah," he said, like it was obvious. "You know how it is. Mom and Dad want something. Simple. No drama. Just family." The word drama hit harder than the word family, as if I was the problem. As if the years I'd spent paying bills they didn't know how to cover and picking up pieces they dropped somehow didn't count as family. I felt something snap, not loudly, not dramatically, more like a rope that had been fraying for years finally giving way. I could stay, beg for a place at a table I'd already earned 1,000 times, or I could finally stop asking. So instead of crying or arguing, I opened my laptop, typed "solo trip last minute," and booked a ticket to Miami. If they wanted a party only for family, they could have it. I'd throw my own celebration, one where I wasn't the invisible supporting act. I closed the booking confirmation and stared at my reflection in the dark screen, a strange calm settling over me. I had no idea that 7 days later my phone would light up with their names, their voices shaking, begging me to come home and fix the disaster they had created without me. And that, for the first time in my life, I wouldn't rush to say yes. Before I tell you how that one sentence, "only for family," turned my whole world upside down, and what I finally said when they called me in tears begging for help, tell me, what time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching from? I'm honestly curious to see how far this story about family, betrayal, and revenge will travel tonight. By the time my plane touched down in Miami, the first sting of being excluded had cooled into something sharper and more defined, like a cut that had finally stopped bleeding but still burned every time I moved. I checked into a small hotel near the beach, tossed my suitcase onto the bed without even opening it, and walked straight back out like my body already knew it needed distance. From my hometown, from that phone call, from the version of me who always swallowed her hurt. When the water finally reached my ankles, cold and insistent, it didn't feel magical or healing. It felt honest. The ocean didn't care who I was, what my last name was, or who my parents bragged about at dinner parties. Standing there, I felt the memories come in layers, like someone was flipping through my life and holding up the parts I'd tried to downplay. I saw myself at 22, hands shaking as I opened that email from the New York design firm. "We're thrilled to offer you an internship." I remembered how bright everything felt in that moment, like the world had finally cracked open a little for me. Then, that same night, my mom's voice trembling in the kitchen as she told me, "Your brother is drowning in tuition. We can't keep up. We don't know what to do." And my dad quietly adding, "This could ruin everything he's worked for." I wasn't asked what I wanted. I wasn't asked how hard I'd worked to get that email. The unspoken expectation sat between us, heavy and familiar. "You'll fix this, right? You always do." I heard myself saying, "It's okay. I can defer. I'll figure something out." Like it was the most natural thing in the world. I could still remember the tight smile on my brother's face when they told him the money had worked out somehow, and how nobody ever asked what I had to give up so it could. Another wave crept higher, and with it came a different memory. Me bent over the sewing machine at midnight, turning a clearance rack dress into something my mom could wear to a charity gala, while my dad rehearsed a speech about how blessed we are as a family. The hallway outside my room was lined with my brother's framed certificates and glossy photos of events he'd attended. My designs lived in a worn portfolio under my bed, waiting for a day when there wasn't an emergency, a crisis, a bill, a favor, a "can you just..." that needed to be handled first. There were smaller moments too, the ones nobody remembers except the person who keeps paying for them. Missing a friend's birthday trip because my parents really needed help repainting the living room before guests came over. Staying late at a miserable temp job so I could cover the gap when dad's bonus didn't arrive. Hearing relatives say, "Your brother is going places," while patting me on the shoulder and calling me so helpful. Helpful, reliable, mature. All those words that sound like compliments until you realize they're just polite labels for the one who sacrifices quietly. Another part of me tried to push back, to say, "You did those things out of love. Nobody forced you." And that was true, in a way. I had wanted to help. I had believed that's what being part of a family meant. Being the flexible one, the one who understood, the one who could wait. But standing there with wet sand clinging to my feet, I finally let a different thought surface. If I hadn't been so willing to bend, would they ever have learned how to stand on their own? Or did I train them to treat my life like spare parts? A fresh wave slid over my toes and carried in a flash forward that made my stomach tighten. I pictured the anniversary party happening without me. My parents at the center of a perfectly curated evening, my brother raising a glass, people laughing, a slideshow of memories playing while someone talks about unbreakable family bonds. My chair empty. My name maybe smoothed over with a vague, "Oh, she's busy doing her own thing." Like I was some distant acquaintance, not the person holding half their history together. I imagined them posting photos later with captions about our beautiful family and dozens of comments saying, "What a perfect night," while I scrolled alone in some corner, pretending it didn't hurt. The image made my chest tight, but it also did something else. It made me angry in a way that felt clarifying, almost clean. If they could so easily rewrite me out of the picture for the sake of avoiding drama, maybe my presence had never really been part of the story they wanted to tell. Only my labor, my money, my compliance. That thought lodged itself in my throat like a stone, heavy but impossible to ignore. For the first time, I asked myself a question I'd always been too scared to form in words. If I stopped fixing things, would they miss me as a person, or just miss what I did for them? And if the answer was the second one, what did that say about the kind of family I'd been clinging to? The wind picked up, whipping my hair around my face, and I realized this trip couldn't just be a dramatic escape to make them feel guilty. It had to be something real for me, a line in the sand I didn't erase later. So right there, with my calves stinging from the salt and my heart pounding from all the truths I'd finally let in, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't chase updates about the party. I wouldn't text to ask how it went. I wouldn't beg to be included in something they'd already decided I didn't belong in. This time, if there were consequences to my absence, they would be the ones to feel it, not me. And beneath all the hurt and anger, a small, steady thought took root. Maybe stepping away isn't the betrayal. Maybe the real betrayal was how little they noticed every time I stepped in. The next few days, I treated Miami like a reset button I'd finally dared to press. I woke up early, grabbed coffee from a tiny place on the corner where the barista called everyone love, and walked the streets with my sketchbook tucked under my arm. Instead of scrolling through my family's group chat to see who was bragging about what, I started noticing small details again. Patterns in tiles, the way light fell across a stranger's jacket, color combinations and murals that made my designer brain hum. One afternoon, I ended up at a co-working cafe buzzing with people glued to laptops. A girl with chipped nail polish and a camera slung around her neck asked if she could share my table. She introduced herself as Sarah, a digital nomad who lived out of a suitcase and made a living posting her travel photography and brand collaborations online. Within 20 minutes, we were talking like old friends. When she found out I was a fashion designer, she leaned forward, eyes bright. "Show me," she said. I hesitated. I was so used to my work being an afterthought that the idea of leading with it felt almost rude. But something about the way she asked, no obligation, just curiosity, made me open my tablet and scroll through my latest designs. Anna, she breathed, why are these not everywhere? I laughed it off, but the question stuck. Why weren't they? Because I'd been too busy stitching everyone else's lives together. Because I'd been told, quietly and repeatedly, that my brother's career was the serious one. Sarah didn't care about any of that. She grabbed my tablet and turned it toward the light. We're posting these. Now, she said. You don't need permission from anyone to take up space. We spent the next hour crafting a simple post, photos of my pieces, a short caption about finally putting my work first, and one line that slipped out of me before I could overthink it. This collection is dedicated to anyone who's ever been told they weren't family enough to be invited. I almost deleted that last part, but Sarah stopped me. That's the part people will feel, she said. We hit post. I expected a few likes, maybe some polite comments. Instead, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Hearts, shares, messages from strangers saying things like, I felt this so much, and same, my family left me out of their special day too, and you're so talented, don't let them dim you. Someone even commented, imagine being the parents who said only for family after seeing this. I stared at that last one for a long time. I hadn't put any names or details, but people connected the dots anyway. One notification made my stomach flip. A mutual friend from back home had liked the post and left a fire emoji. Another commented, is this about who I think it's about? Sarah grinned when she saw my face. Looks like your story isn't staying in Miami, she said. For the first time, the idea of my family seeing my success and the truth hidden inside it didn't terrify me. It felt like a quiet kind of revenge. Not the screaming, smashing kind, but the kind where you finally stand, where everyone can see you and refuse to shrink. As the comments kept rolling in, I caught myself wondering, what happens when the people who underestimated you realize the whole world can now see exactly what they did? The night before my parents' anniversary party, some friends from the cafe invited me to a beach party. I almost said no. Part of me thought I should stay in, keep my phone close, monitor the fallout from that post. But then I remembered why I'd come here in the first place. To stop living my life around other people's moods. So I went. The party was a swirl of music, bonfires, and easy laughter. People danced barefoot in the sand, clinking plastic cups, snapping photos, adding fragments of the night to their stories. I felt strangely at home among these people who barely knew me but still made room for me, no questions asked. At one point, a DJ shouted into the mic, "If you're celebrating something tonight, scream." Voices rose all around me. New jobs, breakups, birthdays, fresh starts. I didn't scream, but inside I whispered, I'm celebrating not being invited. While everyone else danced, I slipped away toward the water, just far enough that the music blurred into a distant thump. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. It buzzed again, and again, until the vibration became impossible to tune out. When I finally checked the screen, my chest tightened. It was my brother. Michael, 9:17 p.m. The party is tomorrow. Are you still coming? Michael, 9:20 p.m. Mom keeps asking where you are. Michael, 9:23 p.m. Also, did you post something online? People are messaging me weird stuff. I scrolled further and saw a screenshot he'd attached. My own post, with the caption about being told I wasn't family enough. Someone had apparently sent it to him. I could almost hear his voice in my head. This is embarrassing, Anna. Why would you air this online? For a second, guilt flared. Then I remembered how easy it had been for him to tell me the party was only for family, like he was reading off a grocery list. Before I could think of what to say, my phone lit up again. This time, an incoming call. His name filled the screen. I let it ring until it cut off. A minute later, another text came through. Michael, 9:31 p.m. Things are already tense here. Dad's furious about something with the venue. Mom's crying over the seating chart. Now people are asking why you're not coming and sending that post around. This isn't funny anymore, Anna. I stared at the message, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. I hadn't planned any of this as a strategy. I just told the truth. But the truth, once set free, was obviously doing what it always does. It messed with the stories people tell about themselves. Behind me, someone shouted my name, calling me back to the party. In front of me, the screen waited for my reply. For years, my instinct would have been to apologize, to smooth things over, to protect the family image at my own expense. Tonight, I slid my phone back into my pocket. Let them feel the tension. Let them answer the questions. Let them sit in the reality they created when they decided I wasn't family enough for their perfect night. I turned around, walked back toward the firelight, and let myself get pulled into a circle of strangers and music. Somewhere between the laughter and the beat, I realized that this was the first time I'd chosen my own joy over their comfort. And deep down, I knew. The real drama hadn't even started yet. The next evening, the actual night of the anniversary party, I woke up to a flood of notifications. More likes, more comments, a few DMs from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Is everything okay with your family? I always thought something was off in the way they treated you. It was like my post had given everyone permission to say what they'd been quietly thinking. I was scrolling through the messages when my phone started ringing again. It was early, the sky still pale, and seeing my brother's name this time felt different. This wasn't about logistics anymore. This felt like a moment when pretending wouldn't work for him either. I answered. Anna? His voice sounded rough, like he hadn't slept. Yeah. We need to talk. There was a pause, filled with a kind of heavy breathing I didn't recognize from him. The sound of someone who finally realized they weren't in control of the story. You really aren't coming? He asked. No, I said. Silence. I could hear faint voices in the background. Our parents, the clatter of dishes, the tight, brittle energy of a house pretending everything was fine. You know people have seen your post, he went on. Clients, Dad's colleagues. People are asking questions. They're saying we treated you like you weren't part of us. He struggled with the last phrase. Didn't you? I asked quietly. The question hung between us. For once, he didn't have a slick, easy response. That's not fair, he finally said. But even he didn't sound convinced. We've always supported you, too. Like when I turned down my New York internship so you could finish school? I asked. Or when I paid for Mom's dress and the vacation last year, and you all posted photos like it magically happened? I could almost hear him sifting through memories, rearranging them, seeing them from new angle. You never said you resented that, he muttered. I thought you wanted to help. I did, I admitted. I still do, in some ways. But wanting to help and being treated like a permanent backup plan are not the same thing. He started to say something, then stopped. In that small gap, I realized this was the closest thing to power I'd ever had in a family conversation. The power to let silence point to the truth. Look, he said finally. Mom's a mess. Dad's angry at everything. They're freaking out because some of their friends saw your post and canceled on them. They're saying things like, if this is how you treat your daughter, maybe we don't want our name next to yours tonight. They're embarrassed. Happy now? I closed my eyes for a second. Part of me wanted to say no, that I wasn't happy, that I never wanted this. But another part, the part that had held my breath for years, finally exhaled. Someone had finally called them out, and it hadn't come from me. It had come from the world watching. It's not about being happy, I said slowly. It's about finally not being invisible. On the other end, my brother let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a groan. So what? This is your revenge? He asked, posting and letting everyone judge us? I thought of all the times I'd been told, don't make a scene, don't overreact, don't air dirty laundry, while they quietly benefited from my silence. No, I said. My revenge is living a life that doesn't require me to disappear to keep everyone comfortable. The post was just telling the truth. Another long pause. Then his tone softened in a way that made my chest ache. Anna, he said, I'm not saying we did everything right. I know Mom and Dad favored me sometimes. A lot of times. But can you at least come home after this? We can talk. Fix things. People are already whispering. We need to show we're still united. There it was. The real request. Not, come home because we miss you, but come home because we need to look good. For a second, the old version of me tugged at my sleeve, telling me to give in, to keep the peace. Instead, I took a breath and set my boundary out loud. I'm not a prop for your image, I said. If you want to fix things, it won't be for a photo. It'll be because you finally see me as part of this family, not just the one who cleans up the mess. So, what do you want? He asked quietly. I didn't answer right away, because for the first time, it wasn't my job to save the party, or his reputation, or our parents' excuses. It was my job to decide what I wanted, and to let them sit in the consequences until they were ready to hear it. That night, while the party I wasn't invited to limped along without me, I ended up sitting on my hotel bed, phone in hand, watching the fallout unfold in real time. A cousin added me back into the family group chat. Someone must have realized I'd left weeks ago. Pictures started popping up. The decorated backyard, the banner, the string lights. At first glance, it looked perfect. But then the comments underneath told a different story. Where's Anna? Wrote an aunt. Hard to celebrate family when one of them is missing, another message said. Someone else dropped a link. A local community Facebook thread where my post had been shared again. People who knew my parents only from their polished, smiling photos were suddenly chiming in. I always wondered why we never saw their daughter in pictures. If this is true, that's heartbreaking. You don't tell your own kid they're not family. That's cruel. My mom tried to defend herself in the chat. It was just a misunderstanding. We didn't mean it like that. Someone replied, then why isn't she there tonight? The next photo that came through was a candid shot someone hadn't meant to send. My parents were at the table, but they weren't smiling. My dad was leaning forward, jaw clenched, my mom blotting her eyes with a napkin. People all around them were half turned away, mid-conversation, like the center of the celebration had quietly shifted somewhere else. For years, I'd been the one crying in corners or swallowing tears so nobody saw. Now the roles were reversed. I didn't feel triumphant, exactly, but I also didn't feel obligated to make it easier for them. A new message pinged into the chat from my brother. Can we please not do this here? This is supposed to be a happy night. 3 dots appeared, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The old me would have typed, I'm sorry, I'll take a post down. Instead I wrote, happy nights don't usually require someone to be erased first. Then I put the phone on airplane mode and went outside. I walked along the sidewalk, listening to the low hum of the city. No waves, no dramatic scenery, just streetlights, passing cars, and my own footsteps. It hit me that for the first time, the weight of the family's choices wasn't sitting quietly on my chest. It was out there, visible, making them uncomfortable. Back in my room, I turned my phone back on. A string of messages appeared immediately. From my mom. We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought you wouldn't enjoy it. Everyone's always asking about Michael's work. We didn't want to make you feel left out again." The irony of that almost made me laugh. From my dad. "You're making your mother cry on her anniversary. Take that post down. This is not the place for drama." From neighbor I barely knew. "For what it's worth, I always wondered why you weren't in more family photos. Your designs are incredible. You deserve better." My chest tightened at that last one. It confirmed what I'd suspected. People notice more than families think they do. Stories slip through the cracks of carefully curated images. I realized that my silence all these years had helped protect a version of our family that never really included me. And now that I'd stopped being silent, that version was collapsing. Was it revenge? Maybe. But it also felt like justice. Like the scales finally tipping, even if only a little. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling, another question forming in my mind. Not just for me, but for anyone who'd ever been where I was. How much of yourself are you supposed to sacrifice before it stops being love and starts being self-betrayal? 4 days after the party, I was sitting at a cafe in Miami, sketching a new design inspired by all of this chaos. Sharp lines, soft fabric, a dress that looked fragile but was secretly reinforced in all the places no one could see. My phone rang again. This time, it wasn't a text or a group chat notification. It was a direct call from my parents' house. My thumb hovered over the decline button, then moved to accept. "Hello?" I said. There was a choked sound, then my mother's voice, thinner than I'd ever heard it. "Anna?" She sounded like she'd been crying for days. Before I could respond, another voice cut in. My father's, tight and controlled. "We need to talk," he said. "We're not doing this," I replied automatically, my guard going up. "If this is about your image or your friends or that Facebook thread—" "It's not just that," he interrupted, and for the first time I heard something like panic underneath the anger. "Your brother lost a client because of that post. They said they didn't want to work with someone whose own family was publicly accusing them of favoritism. Your mother's charity board is reconsidering her position. People keep asking uncomfortable questions." For years, I'd watched him shrug off my feelings like minor inconveniences. Now that he was the one facing consequences, everything was suddenly urgent. "So now you understand what it feels like to be judged for something you'd rather keep behind closed doors," I said. "Welcome to my life." My mom sniffled. "Anna, please. We never thought it would go this far. We just wanted a calm evening. We thought if you weren't there, it would avoid arguments. We handled it badly, I know that. But this is too much." "Too much?" I repeated slowly. "You know what was too much?" Hearing my own brother say only for family like I was a stranger. Watching you frame me as the dramatic one for years while I quietly fixed everything. Having my worth decided by how useful I was to everyone else. "We're not monsters," my dad snapped. "We made mistakes, sure, but we're still your parents." My laugh came out sharper than I meant it to. "And I'm still your daughter," I said. Funny how that only seems to matter when the world is watching. There was a beat of silence. I could hear their breathing, the clink of a mug on their end, the creak of the old kitchen chair I knew too well. Finally, my mom spoke, voice shaking. "We need you to come home," she whispered. "We don't know how to fix this. People are talking. Your brother is furious. Your father is under pressure at work. You've made your point. Please, Anna, come back. Help us." And there it was, the moment from the hook, but now with every raw nerve exposed. They weren't just inviting me. They were begging me. Not out of pure love, but out of fear, shame, desperation. Maybe a little regret tangled in there, too. I closed my eyes and saw it clearly. The scared girl I used to be would have rushed to them, suitcase in hand, ready to put out fires she didn't start. The woman I was becoming sat very still and chose her words. You say you need me now, I said softly. But tell me something. Do we actually know each other? Or do you just know the version of me that never says no? My dad inhaled sharply. My mom let out a quiet sob. I didn't fill the silence. I'd spent too many years filling silences that weren't mine. What do we do then? My mom finally asked. If you're not coming home to fix this, what happens to us? For once, I didn't have an answer packaged for their comfort. Maybe, I said. You sit with the fact that I'm not optional, that I was always part of this family, whether it was convenient or not. If you want a relationship with me, it starts with you seeing me as more than the one who quietly holds everything together. Is that a no? My father asked. It's a boundary, I replied. I'm not coming back to clean up a mess made from years of pretending I didn't matter. If you want to talk, really talk, not just manage appearances, we can schedule a call that isn't about damage control. Until then, you handle your own consequences. I heard my brother in the background now, asking what I'd said. My mom tried to explain through tears. My dad went quiet. I let their reactions fade into the distance and finally said, I hope, for your sake and mine, that this isn't the end of our story. But for once, I'm not going to write the next chapter for you. I hung up, hands shaking but strangely steady inside. I looked down at my sketch, the dress that looked delicate but was secretly reinforced, and realized I'd just drawn a version of myself, strong where no one had ever bothered to look. Before I closed my notebook, another question surfaced. One I'll leave with you. If you were in my place, would you forgive them and go back? Or would you keep your distance and let them finally feel what it's like to live without the person they took for granted?